At my Christmas Eve dinner table with the good china out and my late wife Claire's sweet potato casserole sitting in the center, the way it had for 31 consecutive Decembers, my daughter-in-law picked up a wine bottle and slammed it against the granite counter hard enough to send a shard spinning across the floor and into my left wrist. That's the short version. The long version is everything that led to that moment and everything that followed it. And the part they never anticipated, the part that changed everything, is what I did in the parking lot of the emergency room while blood soaked through the paper towel pressed to my arm. I texted my attorney 2 words: begin everything. My name is Floyd Mercer. I am 64 years old. I spent 32 years building a regional logistics company in Nashville, Tennessee from a single cargo van and a handshake reputation into a fleet of 47 trucks operating across 11 states. When I sold it clean. No debt, no disputes, full market value. I did that with my hands, my mind, and the counsel of exactly 0 people who expected anything from me. My wife Claire understood what I was building before the second truck arrived. She passed 26 months ago, fast and quiet, the way she did most things. I was 62 and alone in a 5-bedroom house in Sylvan Park, and I was genuinely fine. My morning coffee, my neighbors, the youth mentorship program I had funded for 8 years, a full life with room to breathe. I was not asking for company. My son Dion was 31 when he called in the spring and said he and his wife needed to talk. He said they were saving for a down payment. 14 months, maybe 16. Tamara had a plan. Tamara always had a plan. I said yes because he was my son, because Claire would have said yes, because the house had 4 empty bedrooms, and because I still believed at that point that the young man I had raised was somewhere beneath the one I was looking at. That was 18 months before Christmas Eve. In those 18 months, I watched my grocery bill triple and quietly absorbed it. I watched Tamara redecorate the guest bathroom without asking and absorbed that too. I watched Dion quit his project management job in August. Burnout, he said, and Tamara nodded like a physician confirming a diagnosis, and I watched the down payment fund never materialize because whatever they saved went to Cancun and a new sectional sofa and a camera setup for Tamara's social media presence. Mostly videos of her reviewing products she received free, occasionally gesturing around my living room as though the lifestyle was one she had created. She called me dad on camera once. I saw the clip. She had not asked permission. The Christmas Eve dinner was my idea. I cooked everything myself. I wanted one holiday that felt like the ones Claire used to run. Real food, real plates, candles on the table. Dion came downstairs staring at his phone. Tamara sat down and took 3 photos of the spread before we said grace. We were halfway through the meal when she set her fork down. Floyd, she said. She never called me dad to my face, only on camera. I continued eating. We've been talking, she said, and we think it's time for my mom and Garland to come stay for a while, just until they get back on their feet. The back bedroom is just sitting there. I set my fork down. I looked at Dion. He was looking at his plate. I knew about Lucille. Tamara's mother had been evicted from 3 separate apartments in 6 years. I knew that from records I had quietly pulled after the first month of Tamara living in my house, because I ran a logistics company for 3 decades by knowing what was in the truck before I signed the bill of lading. What I had found out 2 weeks before Christmas was considerably worse than eviction history. Garland, Lucille's husband, Tamara's stepfather, a man I had met exactly once and who spent that entire visit telling me about investment opportunities, was the subject of an active federal investigation out of Birmingham. Mortgage fraud, not small scale. The number in the court documents my private investigator had pulled was north of $400,000. There was a warrant. He had failed to appear at a scheduled hearing 6 weeks prior. He was, in the technical language of the U.S. Marshals Service, a fugitive. And Tamara wanted to move him into my home. No, I said. The word came out the same way it used to with vendors who tried to renegotiate a signed contract. Flat, final. Tamara blinked. Excuse me? Your mother and Garland will not be staying here. Dion finally looked up. Dad, come on, it's the holidays. They just need a few months. Your stepfather-in-law has an active federal warrant out of Alabama, I said. He failed to appear at his own hearing. I am not going to have a man wanted by federal authorities establishing residency at my address. The silence lasted about 4 seconds. Then Tamara stood up. How dare you dig into my family like that, she said, voice climbing fast. You had no right. That is an invasion of privacy. Garland made a mistake. He is a good man. He is family. You sit here in this giant house all by yourself like you're better than everyone, like your little company made you some kind of king. Tamara, Dion said it like a warning. She ignored him. You are selfish and you do not care about this family. Her voice cracked on the last word. Not since Claire died. You've been in this house waiting for us to leave so you can go back to being a miserable old man. I don't remember deciding not to respond. I remember that I didn't. That's when she grabbed the wine bottle. She did not throw it at me directly. I want to be precise about that because precision matters. She slammed it down on the granite with both hands and the neck snapped clean, and a piece of glass, roughly the size of a guitar pick, caught me on the inside of my left forearm. It wasn't deep. It bled immediately, and it stung in that sharp, specific way that commands your full attention. I stood up. I did not look at my arm. I looked at my son. Dion had half risen from his chair with the expression I had been watching for 18 months, the one where he was perpetually deciding whether to be a man or an obedient husband. He always chose obedience. "Dad," he started. "Sit down," I said. I picked up my napkin, pressed it to my forearm, got my coat from the closet, took my keys, and walked out the front door. I did not rush. I did not slam it. I sat in my truck in the driveway. The neighbor's oak tree was blinking with Christmas lights. The neighborhood was quiet. Inside, I could hear Tamara's voice, still elevated, still going. My attorney's name was Audra Kwan, 11 years of business and estate work. Sharp, patient, and possessed of a particular ability to plan for eventualities that hadn't happened yet. 6 months earlier, she had told me, regarding a supplier dispute, that the best time to set a trap is before the other side knows there is one. I had been holding a pre-drafted text for 3 weeks. I sent it. "Begin everything." Her reply came in 40 seconds, even on Christmas Eve. "Understood. I'll need a police report. Our first." I backed out of the driveway and drove to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. The intake nurse looked at my arm, then at my face, and asked if I was all right. I told her I had a laceration from a domestic incident. I said it clearly and calmly and in the direction of the security camera above the check-in desk, because by that point I understood that everything was evidence. The resident who treated me informed me she was required to flag the injury. I told her I understood. I told her I wanted to press charges. 2 officers arrived. I gave a statement the way I used to answer auditors, accurately, completely, without editorializing. They left to execute the order. I sat in the treatment room and opened my notes app and began writing. Every incident from the past 18 months, dates, amounts, specific words. I had kept informal records before, but Christmas Eve had given me a reason to formalize them. By 11 o'clock, Nashville Metro Police had escorted Dion and Tamara from my property. Tamara had her phone out during the walk to the car. She was live on Instagram. My neighbor texted me to say there were police lights at my house and did I need anything. I told her I was fine. I told her thank you. The locksmith arrived at midnight. I had a 24-hour service on file from my company days. He changed every cylinder in 40 minutes. I tipped him generously because it was Christmas Eve and he had answered his phone. The next morning, I discovered Tamara had changed the passcode on my home security system. I found this out when I tried to disarm the panel at 6:15 and received 3 rapid error tones and a red light. I stood in front of it for a moment. Then I went to make coffee and called a security consultant I had used on 3 of my distribution center build-outs, a man who did not ask unnecessary questions. He arrived with a technician at 8. They swept the house in under 2 hours. They found a small audio device in my home office, stuck to the underside of the center drawer of my desk with a magnet. They found a pinhole camera inside the smoke detector in the living room. They found a second audio transmitter in the hallway outside the master bedroom, the room where Dion and Tamara had been sleeping, angled toward the wall adjacent to where I made phone calls. The consultant laid the devices on my kitchen table in small evidence bags and explained each one methodically. "How long?" I asked. "Based on the dust pattern on the camera housing," he said, "at least 5 months. 5 months. I had spoken to Audra from that hallway about the trust restructure. I had gone over estate documents at that desk. I had made calls to my financial advisor that I had no reason to believe anyone else was hearing. In logistics, you never leave a load unsecured. I had left my entire life unsecured for 5 months. "Full chain of custody documentation on everything," I said. "I'll need it admissible." Tamara had left her laptop charging in the bedroom. In the chaos of the eviction, she had grabbed her phone, her ring light, and her overnight bag. The laptop was still there, blinking amber on the nightstand. I opened it. The screen came up without a password prompt. I went directly to her messages. There was a group thread. Tamara, Dion, Lucille, and a contact listed as G. The messages went back 4 months. I read them standing up because I could not make myself sit down. G was Garland. He was not writing like a man going through a difficult period. He was writing like a man executing a plan. In October, he had written, "The Nashville address is clean. Need to be there by February before Birmingham gets loud. Get us in the back room. We lay low 6 months minimum." Tamara had replied, "Working on it. The old man is stubborn, but I know how to handle him." Lucille, "Honey, be patient. He's lonely. Lonely men do what women tell them." I kept reading. In November, Dion had written to Garland directly, "I know this isn't ideal, but he doesn't know about the warrant and he won't find out. Once you're in, you're in." And then, 2 weeks before Christmas, apparently after Garland had been told about a phone call I'd had, presumably captured by the audio device, Tamara had written, "He's suspicious. We need to move faster. If he reacts badly, even better. If he reacts badly, even better." I read that sentence 3 times. Then I forwarded the entire thread to Audra, plugged the laptop into a backup drive, and copied everything on it. That afternoon, my phone lit up with a notification. Tamara was live. She was sitting on a hotel room floor, a ring light casting her face in the particular soft glow social media people use when they want to appear, as though they've been crying without actually looking like it. Her voice was controlled and trembling in the way of someone who has rehearsed. She described a volatile father-in-law, thrown objects, terror, a family put out in the cold on Christmas Eve by a wealthy man with connections. She held up her arm to the camera, a purple-green bruise on the inner forearm. She placed her other hand over her stomach. She let the implication settle. I paused the video and zoomed in. I know what impact bruising looks like at different stages because 32 years of physical operations work teaches you that. The edges on that bruise were too clean. The color gradation was wrong. It looked like makeup applied by someone who had studied but never actually been hurt. I also knew something else. I had been paying the health insurance premium for Dion and Tamara since August, when Dion left his job and lost his employer coverage. The policy was under my account. I received the explanation of benefits statements every month. I read every one of them because I am a man who reads what he pays for. 11 months ago, Tamara had had an outpatient bilateral procedure. I had looked up the procedure code at the time. There was no pregnancy. There had not been one since, and there would not be one. But she had 22,000 people watching her protect a child that did not exist. I called Audra. "She's claiming a pregnancy on a live stream," I said. 1 second of silence. "I know exactly which medical record to subpoena," she said. The next phase moved the way a critical logistics operation moves, fast, deliberate, and on a timeline planned long before the crisis arrived. Audra filed for a permanent protective order and submitted the ER records, the police report, the security consultant's findings with full chain of custody documentation, and a forensic copy of the tablet data. The judge issued a temporary order the same day. I called the bank and had the authorized user access revoked on every account. I reported the hotel charges and meal charges from the past 48 hours as unauthorized use. The account was frozen pending fraud review. I found out from a contact at the hotel that the card decline had come during dinner, that Dion had tried twice, that Tamara had made a scene in the restaurant, that it was Lucille who had finally paid, from a roll of cash pulled from her jacket pocket. I imagined that dinner clearly. I did not feel bad about it. There was one thing left. My home office had a climate-controlled cabinet where I kept 31 years of coin collecting, Morgan silver dollars, peace dollars, a few key date pieces I had hunted down over decades. At current market value, somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000. Dion had asked about them twice in the past year with the specific casual curiosity that is never actually casual. I asked my security consultant to adjust the latch on one east side window, the one I'd had since the house was built, the one I occasionally left cracked in summer. I asked him to make it appear secured without being secured. I asked him to route interior motion alerts directly to the police monitoring line. Then I waited. It took 6 days. The alert came at 1:47 in the morning. I was awake. I watched on my phone as a figure moved through the study with a flashlight. The figure wore dark clothing and a hood but moved with the gait of someone I had watched cross my kitchen floor 400 times. He went to the cabinet. He had a key, a copy made, I assumed before the lock change, from the spare I had kept on a hook in the laundry room. The cabinet opened. He started moving coins into a bag. The patrol car arrived in under 5 minutes. I walked downstairs as the officers came up the porch steps. My son was on his knees in the study when they brought me in to identify what had been taken. He looked up at me with an expression I will spend a long time thinking about. Part shame, part fury, part something that might have been, underneath everything, something close to relief, like a man who had been running for a long time and had finally stopped. "Tell them it's fine," he said. "Tell them I had permission." I looked at the coins in the evidence bag. I looked at the broken cabinet latch. I looked at my son. "I don't know this man," I said to the officer. "He broke into my home." I also forwarded the federal warrant information and Garland's last known location, which I had from the tablet data, to the appropriate contact at the Birmingham field office. Garland was picked up the following morning. The trial lasted one afternoon. Audra had the security footage showing the wine bottle incident in full. She had the audio from the tablet. She had the medical records establishing the procedural impossibility of any pregnancy. She had Tamara's own live stream, time-stamped and preserved, in which Tamara had solicited cash donations while describing a pregnancy that did not exist. The judge, a woman in her early 60s who looked at Tamara with the expression of someone who has been lied to by smarter people, gave Tamara the opportunity to explain the medical discrepancy. Tamara said the records were incorrect. Her own attorney looked at the table when she said it. The judge issued the permanent protective order, 500 yards, 5 years. She referred the perjury matter to the district attorney. She said something I have thought about since. "Mr. Mercer," she said, "you conducted yourself with more restraint than most people would have managed. This court sees what was done to you clearly." I thanked her. I walked out into the afternoon. Tamara's sponsored terminations came within 48 hours of the medical records becoming public record. The internet, which had briefly rallied behind her tears, reversed with the speed and thoroughness it always does when it discovers it was used. Dion sat in county lockup for 3 weeks before making bail through a bondsman who took the title to his car. He had apparently been living in the car before that, after Tamara checked out of the hotel without leaving a forwarding address, a note, or anything other than the minibar charges. He found my new address on a Tuesday morning. I had sold the Sylvan Park house and moved to a 2-bedroom condo in Germantown, 12 minutes from the mentorship center, a parking space, a balcony over the Cumberland River. I went down to the lobby when the doorman called up. He looked like a man who had dropped 20 pounds without meaning to. The expensive jacket was gone. He was wearing a fleece and jeans and the hollow look of someone who hadn't slept well in a month. "I didn't know how bad the warrant was," he said. "I knew there was legal trouble, but—" "You wrote to him that I wouldn't find out," I said. "You told Garland once he was inside, he was in. I read the messages." He didn't deny it. That was something. "She's with someone else," he said. "She was with someone before I even got out." "I know." He was quiet for a moment. "I need help." "I know you do." I reached into my jacket and handed him a piece of paper I had been carrying for 2 days, because I had known this conversation was coming. It was the name and number of an operations manager at a logistics firm in Memphis. A man I had done business with for 18 years. I had called in a favor. "This isn't charity," I said. "It's a door. Knocking on it is your job." He looked at the paper. He looked at me. "Go call that number," I said. He left. I went back upstairs and stood on the balcony with my coffee. The Cumberland moved the way it always does, steadily, in one direction, indifferent to everything happening on the banks. I used to tell my new drivers something in their first week. The highway doesn't care how you feel about the load. It only responds to what you do. You can blame the traffic, blame the dispatch, blame the weather. But at the end of the day, the delivery either arrives or it doesn't. You either drove it there or you didn't. Dion had spent a long time not driving the load. He was going to have to learn how at 31. That was late. Late is not the same as never. That night I opened a bottle of bourbon I had been saving. A Pappy Van Winkle 15-year a vendor had given me when we hit a shipping milestone years ago. I poured 2 fingers. I walked out to the balcony. The city lights broke across the river in long, unsteady lines. They had called me selfish. They had meant it as a lever. The word they calculated would make me fold, open my door, open my accounts, open my life to their particular variety of slow-moving demolition. They expected shame to do what they could not do themselves. What they found instead was a 64-year-old man who had spent 3 decades learning that the most dangerous load is the one you carry for someone else with no contract, no destination, and no plan to get it off the truck. I raised the glass. I am selfish about my peace. I am selfish about my safety. I am selfish about the years I have left and what I choose to do with them. I took a sip. It tasted exactly like something I had earned.